Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hello, this is Pari.
And this is Jennie, and we're here to talk about
Bees books. Well, we're going to try and talk about Bees books. I have to admit I have a head cold and I'm feeling poorly and my brain again is not working. So good luck, Jennie.
I have to admit that I'm edging slightly away from Pari, just so I don't also get a head cold.
Thankfully, it's the end of my head cold, so I'm not contagious. I say hopefully.
Yes.
But come next week, I'll be back and everyone will be sneezing and cursing
absolutely.
me. Typhoid, Pari. So how have you been in the last few weeks that I've been away?
Well, you have been away, Pari, on your adventures. So the lovely Mark and Andrew have both stepped in.
Yes.
I'm glad you're back.
Yes.
Because you know more about the technology than any of us.
Which is quite an alarming statement in my current condition.
I think we survived. There was a blip last time that the laptop decided that it didn't like being charged.
Okay.
And almost kicked us out at one point.
Lovely.
And we did a very kind of, I'm sure nobody noticed, oh no, this is about to and then we plugged it back in and it was all fine.
Okay, that's good to know. It keeps you on your toes.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
never like you can't become too comfortable. It's not a stale relationship that we have.
No, exactly. But apart from that, it's all been fine and dandy. How about yourself? How were your adventures?
Oh, fantastic.
Yay.
I did not want to come back. I'm so sorry to admit. I would just settle back down in the city. But I also think it was like the allure of holiday mode because, I was just like there to have a good time, just meeting friends, eating food, traveling around the city like a tourist. So I think if I actually lived there, I would be like, oh, take me back to Glasgow, take me back to Scotland. So I was happy. I was happy to be back. There, and I was happy to be back here as well.
Excellent.
So.
And our theme this week is home.
Yes.
Because you seem to have two homes now.
I do. Which is actually, it sounds weirdly negative, maybe, but there are some downsides to having two homes because you're always missing something. But there's also positives because you have two places and two sets of people to call home.
Exactly.
So what books do you have for the theme today?
Well, I have two books, and my first book is called...
I recognize the back.
Yes.
And the front.
The Girl of Ink and Stars, by Kieran Millwood
Hargrave?
Thank you. I don't have my glasses on and it's tiny. I didn't realise that. It's tiny right down at the
And
bottom.
it's like the colour, it's blue against black.
Yes.
And, yeah.
But it is a lovely cover.
It is, yes.
And my second book is Charity Ends at Home Instead of Begins at Home by Colin Watson.
Oh, I like your emphasis on ends. It sounded quite like, is charity the only thing that's ending in this book?
Well, I'll give you a wee hint. It's a murder mystery.
Oh, well, I did think the life God. Well, I have two books as well that have a weird interpretation of home.
Okay.
So first is, I'm still reading this book. It's called Chop, Fry, Watch, Learn. Fu Pei Mei and the Making of Modern Chinese Food by Michelle T. King. Lovely cover, lovely border of the sort of Chinese pottery kind of blue and white and just Chinese cooking ingredients and food and the person that this book is about on the cover as well.
It's a lovely cover.
Yeah,
actually.
it is. Yes, and the back as well. Well, yeah. The front is better. I committed to the back and then I was like, oh no.
Oh, this is a wee book.
Well, yes. The second book, it's not a book from the library, but we have copies in the library.
Not as pretty
And
as that.
it's the ever classic Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I was going to say Lucy Maud Montgomery because I know her full name. But it's only L.M. Montgomery here. And it's a tiny little book. It's a part of a collection. It's called the Little Classics Library. And I got it from a charity shop right in Coatbridge. Well, I didn't. One of our co-workers saw it and she knows I like children's books and I collect children's books. So it's a set of 4. And I just picked it off my shelf just this morning. And I just noticed there's something on the spine that's a bit alarming. But we shall ignore that and look for a dustbin.
No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
We're going to say it's a leaf that's blown in.
Sure.
This horrible weather that we're having today.
Let's not think about it too hard.
It's there now, though. Anyway, I shall talk about my first book. If that's okay, Pari.
And how does it fit into home?
Well, so have you read this one yourself?
I have, but years ago. so I remember almost nothing about
Excellent,
it.
good. I've just finished it and also remember almost nothing about it, so we'll wing it. So The Girl of Ink and Stars, it is a beautiful cover. I also picked this copy up in a charity shop for like 10 pence, some ridiculous price. It is a children's book. We would have it as a red sticker, so a junior fiction book. The cover is beautiful. It's orange and it's got black outline, a shadow of a girl, which if you look closer has trees coming out of her head, which I didn't notice at first.
And the mountain range.
Yes, and some birds and things, yes. And then in beautiful blue foil, it says The Girl of Ink and Stars. And basically, the reason I'm squeezing it into home is because our main character, Isabella, lives on this island and nobody's allowed to leave. So they live in... It's quite vague, the book, of where the island is in the world and what kind of year it is. I roughly think it's maybe Victorian times, maybe a bit earlier than that. And it seems to be somewhere sort of near Africa, possibly, but it's all kind of vague, which I quite liked, because you knew that they were probably real places, although the island possibly isn't, but not too real to, interfere with the story too much.
Yeah.
And basically, this island has a governor now, and the governor is very strict. You're not allowed to leave the island. He's kind of, the village that they stay in, he's kind of, nobody's allowed in or out the village. He's banished some people. This all happened about 30 years ago. And basically, he's kind of like in control of this. He has a wife and now a daughter, and our main character, Isabella, is the same age roughly as his daughter, and they have to go to school. And she's befriended the daughter of the governor. Nobody else likes the daughter of the governor because nobody else likes the governor. But the daughter, who I've forgotten the name of, again, sorry, I should write down all names, shouldn't I? It's a really nice girl, and she's just kind of, they're about 12, 13, I think. Just plodding along. It's her dad, so she doesn't really think much about it, and he doesn't really tell her anything, so she's quite naive, I would say. Isabella also is quite, because they're enclosed, there's no new people ever, they kind of know everybody and all that kind of stuff, so they go to school together, they come back home, nobody's really allowed to visit the governor's house, so there's no kind of sleepovers or anything like that. And obviously Isabella, is poor, you would say, monetary wise, although she's rich in family life and things like that. It doesn't really want, the posh girl to come and visit her house kind of thing, but they're quite happy. And Isabella's dad is a cartographer, I think is the right word. So he's a kind of map maker and, that kind of a thing. And in his youth, he was all around the world creating maps of loads of different places, but now he's not allowed to leave. He's not even allowed to make a map of the island because the governor is that strict.
Right.
So basically, they live at home. They're kind of tight-knit, community. And then one day when they're going to school, a couple of days before the governor's daughter's birthday, a body is found.
Oh.
Yes, of a young girl.
Oh.
Yes.
I don't remember any of this. But so what you're telling me now is all brand new information.
And she's kind of like not a loner, the girl that's died, but she doesn't quite, they all kind of have their own kind of misfitsness about them. But, she's kind of, and then kind of forgotten about almost. The governor's not really interested. Obviously the governor knows things that we don't know and the villagers don't know, but it looks like she's kind of ventured into the forbidden forest basically, and has been killed. And then that like makes everything else kind of start. So people want to find out what's happened. There's now a curfew. Nobody's allowed to go to school. Nobody's allowed to go out their house. They're basically now properly stuck in their house. But the governor is still kind of pretending that everything's okay. So still has a big fireworks display for his daughter's birthday, all this kind of a thing. And for such a small book and a children's book, there's a lot in it. You would obviously, have read it a long time ago, but I can imagine you would have enjoyed this because there's so much, like, there's a little bit of politics as well because of, like, the governor kind of, lording it over everybody, and that there's a story there. That there's a story behind why he's there in the first place. There's a story behind her father and his map making kind of a thing. There's a neighbour who has had to drop out of school and go to work to earn money to keep his family. Her twin, Isabella's twin, passed away before we knew anything. So she's got a bit of sadness about her as well. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. For a book that I picked up for £10 or whatever, not expecting to enjoy because I'd forgotten to take a book on holiday with me and it was just there. I read it in one sitting.
Oh, wow.
I just went right through it and absolutely loved it. I loved the adventureness of it as well, because obviously after the girl is died, other people decide to go out and investigate because the governor's not doing anything. And then, of course, because of that, the governor has to get involved because basically his daughter is the one that goes, right, I am going to go out. My father, I've discovered, is a horrible man. I'm going to go out and find. And you've discovered there's like a bit of magic in it as well. So originally, the island was a floating island, just kind of floated around the world quite happily. And now it's stuck in one place. And that's the metaphor for the whole book, I think, is everyone's stuck in one place. And we find out that 1,000 years ago, something happened. The myth is that the fire god, I think, decided that, liked the island so much, wanted the island, and then there was a heroine that went out, tried to kill the fire monster or whatever, and never returned. But everything seemed to have stopped, so everything was fine. But you discover through this story as well that the island isn't dying as such, but it's kind of, well, I suppose it is, it's basically kind of dying. So when they go into the forest, they realise that some of the forest is actually like petrified, it's not actually still growing. And as they go into the other villages, which have become like, it's where all the people have been sent that the governor didn't like. There's a special name for them, which I can't remember. There's people living there that, are just trying to get on with things, but have realised quicker than anybody else that things are changing, basically. And it's just I'm not doing it justice at all.
Oh, you absolutely are. It sounds fantastic. I remember
nothing.
I remember the vague sort of the governor bits and things, and the dictatorialness of it. But again, really vaguely. I read so much, and and I have a terrible memory. But no, it sounds fantastic.
No, I can see that it's probably based on a myth or a legend of some kind, and the authors kind of developed that to kind of make it into a story as such. But I absolutely enjoyed it, and I've never heard of this author before. I will go out and see if she's written anything else.
We have a couple of books of hers on our shelves as well.
Oh, excellent. Completely passed me by. And probably, as I say, if the cover hadn't jumped out at me, it would still have passed me by. But yes, to fit into the theme, they're all kind of stuck at home.
I like the different influences as well, because there is no original story, right? Like everyone is influenced by different things. So what you were saying about the myth making, it reminds me of like the Islander sort of world creation myths. Moana was one of that.
Exactly.
Movie. But then also the dystopias, like the aspect of it where it's so Mortal Engines is one by Philip Reeve. That's where the sort of ruler's child figures out, like, is a protagonist and figures out that what she took for granted for so long was not actually the reality that a lot of other people around her are living, and then how you learn to question someone that you loved and then sort of work against them in sort of collaboration with a friend usually. So a lot of different.
Absolutely, and there's like loads of wee bits in it so there's like a maze, which kind of harked back to like the Minotaur in the maze. There was wee things like that you could tell, and all these myths and legends are across the world.
Yes.
You know, everybody has very similar things, but you know, they remember it in their culture,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. So you can kind of see things like that as well. But the base of the story, yes, is absolutely spot on. You know, it's lots of these wee things kind of taken in
Yeah.
and then expanded again.
And the island as well, I suppose, you said it wasn't like it was a fictional island with some fantastical elements. I think that would also influence the kind of myth making, like the place,
Absolutely.
like the kind of weather there is, the
Mhm.
kind of geographical features there are,
Absolutely.
the kind of histories that you know and stories that you share.
Absolutely. And near the end, you can see that perhaps where the myth has come from, that something's what we know now,
Yes.
but maybe 1,000 years ago,
Yes.
that's what they made that into, if you see
Yeah.
what I mean. And you can see all that.
Yeah.
But it was a very good story. I really, really enjoyed it. I liked the main character as well. She was good at kind of keeping everything kind of balanced, and she didn't really want to be the hero, but she's had to go in and help other people. And this governor's daughter, she's kind of made friends with her, knowing that
Yeah.
nobody else really is going to be a friend, and they've settled into a good routine. So her dad's a map maker, and sometimes for the governor's daughter, can't remember her name, for her birthday, she'll make her a wee map with an X, and she's to find the X, and then there is a gift kind of
Yeah.
a thing. There's all these wee kind of elements as well that the book could have been 3 times bigger.
Yeah.
And I would have enjoyed it, but I did quite enjoy that it wasn't, if you know what I mean, that you were kind of right into the story.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
And did it have a satisfying ending?
It did very much so, and it had a 1 year later, which I
Oh.
love, because I like things tied up. Because it ended and then it was like, oh, and 1 year later, and you kind of got glimpses of how things were going to develop. So yes, I very much enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to also then talk about a children's book. Have you ever read Anne of Green Gables?
I don't think I have.
Well, it is one of my favorite books in the entire world, and I wish I had discovered it as a teenager or even as a younger child. I didn't, even though this book has been around since 1908, so it was written a long time ago.
Mhm.
I first discovered it in my 20s, my early 20s, and I couldn't believe how seen I felt in a book.
Mhm.
It's a fantastic book, even though it's set in like rural Canada and I grew up in very urban Mumbai. I think classics, the ones that resonate across time and
Absolutely.
across space and still resonate today,
Mhm.
are classics for a reason, because of like the characters or the world or the language,
Mhm.
all three of that, which is like, yeah, amazing in this. So I'll just give you a brief glimpse. So it's about Anne Shirley,
Mhm.
this 11-year-old girl who has grown up in orphanages and foster families. So her parents died when she was a baby. So she's never had a family to call her own. So the way that I fit it into the theme is that it's a quest for home and finding home.
Excellent.
So it starts off with this a pair of siblings, Marilla Cuthbert and Matthew Cuthbert, who have a farm in rural Canada on Prince Edward Island, also another island, and they're elderly now. They're in their 50s and 60s, and they feel like they need someone to help, like someone young to help out on the farm.
Mhm.
So they decide to adopt from an orphanage a boy. So they call, and this was in like the late 1800s, it's set.
Mhm.
So they write whatever the process was. They write and they inquire and they say, okay, yes, send us a boy along that we're going to adopt who can help us with the farm and then inherit the farm.
Mhm.
When we die. And lo and behold, who turns up but a little redhead 11-year-old girl
Oh.
who was the wrong kind of child that they asked for. And they just like, if you order something on Amazon now and you return it, that's what they planned to do. They were like, oh, this is not who we asked for. She's just a girl. She's not going to be able to help us with all the things that we wanted a boy for. So we're just going to like send her back as one does. But Anne is completely heartbroken because when she first meets Matthew, she's so excited because she's never had a home before.
Mhm.
Even in the foster families that she's lived, she was used as basically child labor to
Mhm.
like bring up other children, and so she's really tired. She's never felt loved. So she was thinking that this would be my chance at home.
No.
But but they say, well, at least the sister says, no, we can't. This is ridiculous. And she's also quite a dramatic personality. So she's not this nice, meek little girl. She's very talkative, has like an unhinged imagination. Everything that she sees, she like goes into raptures over. She appreciates beauty and aesthetics. So when she sees like a beautiful tunnel of trees or like a sort of a leaf floating in the wind, she just like spouts poetry. And they had like a nice quiet life, and they both find it a bit much. So that she doesn't shut up, and she's just so dramatic with her highs and lows. But then she ends up sort of falling for her. And so they keep saying that, okay, fine, we'll see. Even though she gets into a fight with one of their neighbors and like calls her names because she's very sensitive about her red hair. She really wants nice, beautiful raven locks, and she feels that this red hair is a punishment that she's been given.
I think that goes nowadays, doesn't it? If you've got dark hair, you want light hair.
Yeah.
You've got curly hair, you want straight hair.
Yeah.
We're never happy.
No, and she's like, I'm so plain looking. My hair is ugly. The only thing that I have, I think she's really fond of her nose. She thinks her nose is so. She's very insulted by this elderly neighbor and storms off in a huff because she said something about her hair or something. And so her pride was injured. But in spite of that, the Cuthberts decide that, okay, we'll see how it goes. And it's just a story about that. It's just a story about her sort of finding her way in this community. Avonlea, it's called, and it's on a real place called Prince Edward Island in Canada. And it's about all the friendships that she makes, the school that she goes to, and all the dramatic incidents that happen. And she is a very dramatic child.
Okay.
Like, I loved her so much. And she likes to write as well. So she always uses like words that everyone else in this small, quiet village will be like, oh, what is she talking about? And there are incidents that stand out so well in my brain. Just because I think it's become such a and I've reread these books quite a bit. I've also watched the TV adaptation and the movies, and with any on Netflix. Jennie, you would love it.
Okay.
It's fantastic. So it's based on the books because this is the first book. There are more in the series, but it unfortunately ended on 3 seasons, but ends very nicely.
Okay.
So it's like set in the past during this time, but expands it a little bit more. So some stories that are not here and some characters that are not here, like brings them into the mix, and it's really nicely done. So I feel, but then even though there are like other ways, directions, adaptations can go, there are these core sort of Anne Shirley identities. One of which I'm wearing today is puffed sleeves.
Oh.
So she's always dreamt of puff sleeves because everyone, she's a poor girl. Everyone just gives her plain clothes, like workaday clothes that can just fit in with her school and home. Marilla Cuthbert especially. She's quite strict and quite stern, and she doesn't want to spoil this child. So she's like, no, puff sleeves are nonsense and stuff. And just dreams of the day when she grows up and she can wear puff sleeves. And there's like on one birthday, Matthew sort of goes against his sister and like gets a dress stitched for her, and she's like, again, raptures of joy. There's another thing where she accidentally gets one of her friends drunk on sherry. Yes. Another where she tumbles off the roof when she's like trying to sort of walk and like just show off, I guess. She just falls off the roof and thinks she's broken every bone in her body.
She sounds a bit of a rascal.
But she's very well-meaning. She doesn't get into trouble like for the sake of getting into trouble. She just doesn't think of what she's doing, and she just like act first, think later. So it gets her in a lot of trouble. There's this boy in her school who becomes her mortal enemy.
She has a nemesis.
She has a nemesis, Gilbert Blythe, because he calls her carrots. Again, the hair.
Oh.
So she breaks a slate over his head because she's so angry and refuses to speak to him for a very long time. And then like things happen. So it's just a fantastic series. Like there's still like bits of it that to me, I think she dyes her hair green once as well.
Oh.
She just gets into like mad fits of like things that could only happen to her.
And you said it's a series. Can you read the book one and it finishes?
Yes,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So I think because it was so popular, she just sort of wrote more. I think there's like 6 more in the
right,
series.
okay. And is it her growing up, or
Yes.
is it all?
So I think in the end, it's even her children.
Oh,
And like that. So there's a Rilla of Ingleside. I think that's the last one, and that's one of her daughters.
Mhm.
So I think most people are quite happy with just the one.
Mhm.
I'm a bit of a completist, and because I love her so much that I've read them all. Some are better than others, I think, especially because of where she ends up.
Mhm.
I feel like I would disagree with that a little bit.
Mhm.
But I just love the series. I like collecting different beautiful editions. So this is one tiny one with some illustrations. I also have a folio books edition. I don't know if
lovely.
you've heard of that. Yeah, I just got a used copy online, but that has beautiful illustrations. I'm looking at another one which has like letters and like games and stuff in pockets
Oh, nice.
within the book. So it's like made by this movie producer who's created all these sort of material things like paper goods, a
Oh,
map of the island, and just
beautiful.
yeah. So I'm eyeing that. It's just a book that I think is such a big part of my life, even though I only discovered it like 10, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that I think there's no perfect age to find this book. I think you'd fall in love with it even now, I hope. But even if you don't, that's fine. But I think it's just there's something in the book that speaks across like whatever differences, cultural differences, anything that you have, just because she's such a mad character.
And you say it's written in 1908?
Yeah, that's when it came out. So
But slightly earlier?
slightly earlier, because I think I was reading up a little bit about it. So Lucy Maud Montgomery had like made notes of this story she'd heard in her youth where these 2 siblings had adopted a boy, ended up getting sent a girl, and they just like kept her. So she thought that made a good sort of story. And apparently she was also going to she was responding to this trend of books, which was about orphans finding families. But obviously we've not heard of most of them at the time because hers stood out so much. I think she makes it her own in like a fantastic way. And now there are like pilgrimages to Prince Edward Island, just like how Jane Austen has hers. So I think there are some authors and some characters that are so like, I think they live on forever just because of the people who love that.
And it stands the test of time?
Absolutely, yes. But that's why I like the adaptations as well, because so within and within E, it talks about, so the characters that it includes are characters that possibly maybe she wasn't thinking of, or maybe she was. But things like not Inuit, the indigenous population in Canada, which now we know how horribly they've been treated, like, where they were stolen from their families and put in these missionary schools, their culture was erased. All these things may not have been that much a part of the life, like when she was writing, or maybe she didn't know, or maybe she didn't like want to write about that. But it was incorporated really well, I think, and becomes a friend with one of these people, and it just is it's beautiful. It's
so even
lovely.
that's not in the original story,
No.
it still worked.
It still
Sometimes when they do that, it doesn't work, and people get very angry because it's not their story. But it worked for you.
I mean, I still think people might still be angry at it.
People are angry at everything.
Yes, but I think it's written, it's like a love letter to the book. So the sort of vibe of it, the ethos of it is there. The way that it's treated, it feels very much like, yes, this fits in perfectly. So even if it's a story that isn't here, it's a story that would have been happening, and it just makes sense that Anne would be a part of it in this way, or Gilbert would be a part of it in this way, because there are other stuff happening. Just because when you adapt, you always speak to the time that you're writing in as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it works. There are also like graphic novels and stuff. We have an adaptation. I think it's called Anne from West Philly or something. So it's set in Philadelphia, a black girl, Anne, and it's set in like current times. There's also like a queer reimagining of it called Dan of Green Gables,
Okay.
which is I haven't read that one yet, but it had good reviews online. So again, people like responding in different ways.
And what is Green Gables? Is that the farm?
That's the house,
The
and it
house, right,
has
okay.
green gables. So I think it's the structure of the roof
Mhm.
or something, and so that's like the distinctive feature. So she becomes Green Gables becomes home, and she becomes Anne of Green Gables. So I think that fits in well with the
Absolutely,
theme.
absolutely.
But I definitely recommend the book, and for sure Jenny would love Anne with an E. It's a nice sort of three, and to listeners as well. It's a 3 sort of season thing, 10 episodes each, and so not very intimidating and just lovely. Just
Would you say read the book first?
Oh,
or right?
yes.
Yes. Oh, I got an angry look there.
Oh yes, because even the adaptation. So there's a graphic novel adaptation of Anne with an E, of Anne of Green Gables, which is not like it's not retelling. Like it's not like Anne of Westphalia or Dan of Green Gables. It's like a true to form adaptation, but I think it loses much in the love of language. She loves language, and so the book, and obviously Lucy Montgomery, I think, does as well. So the way that things are written, the way that things are described, sometimes melodramatically, I think the original book is the best. I think that works the best, and then you watch the adaptation.
I'm just trying to think. So our friend Frances Harden,
Yes,
it has a couple of graphic novels, and
Yes.
they are perfect.
yes,
But I imagine if you took Fly By Night and made that into a graphic novel,
absolutely.
it's going to lose
Yeah.
some of it because of his flowery language.
yes.
You wouldn't get that in a graphic novel. Graphic novels, has different
Strengths.
yeah.
No, and I think like even though I totally like support the idea that there are different entryways into like a beloved story, so there'll be people who watch the Anne with an E first and then are sort of, and it has happened, like they've fallen in love with the TV show and then they've gone and read the book.
Yeah.
Maybe the kids have encountered the graphic novel and then maybe or maybe they won't, and that's fine as well. But for you, I feel like specifically tailored to you, I think you should read the book first and then fall in love
Right.
more with the TV show.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, talking about flowery language,
Oh.
my second book, Charity Ends at Home by Colin Watson, I did not like.
Oh no.
And it's not often that I will come on and talk about a book I didn't like.
But I love a good rant. So a rant
and I did not finish it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I had picked it up basically because, in usual, I had been, oh no, these books, she's given us home, and I don't have a book. Seen this, Charity Ends at Home, perfect.
Yes.
Home in the title, can't go wrong. There's a weird looking goldfish out of its tank on the cover, a wee kind of city scene at the bottom. You can kind of tell for this it's kind of murder mystery. It's a Flaxborough mystery. Didn't read the blurb or anything. Sat down, started reading it, and oh my goodness. For such a small book, it looks like a children's size book. It's quite small. There was a lot of words just to say I bought a loaf of bread.
Oh, and not in a good way, not in a Frances Harden.
No, not in a good way.
Yeah.
But I gave it a bit longer. There was a lot of characters introduced quite quickly, and they all had big flouncy names, which again, I'm sure if you read it, other people read it and know that the names are supposed to be funny or play on this or that kind of thing. I just was like, oh my goodness, why can't you just be called something, like that? It didn't really give you an idea of when it's set. I think it's set in the 50s. There's policemen on bicycles, and there's not that many motor cars about. It kind of feels that time. Definitely not golden age, not between the wars, definitely after, so around the 50s, which I like, it's not something I don't like, but there was just too much in it, but no story as such. So basically it starts out, there's a kind of coroner, he goes to this coroner event.
Conference?
No, what they actually do, they sit in the courtroom and give the evidence. I can't remember what that's called. See, there's too much language in it. It just
I have a head cold, Jenny. Please.
Bamboozled me. Anyway, he goes to this coroner thing, and somebody's died, and basically he's there to say, yes, they died. We think it's been just a car accident.
Inquest?
Yes, thank you. Been an accident, etc., etc. But he's a very grumpy coroner. He's, came from a long line of that kind
Grumpy
of
coroner.
Yes. And a policeman goes and picks him up. The policeman knows exactly how grumpy he is quite not mean, but gets his revenge every now and again by doing things. So basically says, oh, you won't need a jacket today, it's a sunny day, I'm taking you there in the car, blah 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 blah. And of course at the end of the inquest it's pouring with rain, it's freezing cold, and the guy's like, I'm cold, I've got no jacket, I'm going out in the rain.
To be fair, is this set in Scotland? Because you wouldn't be able to tell.
Again, you can't quite tell. I think it's kind of an English kind of seasidey almost town, not quite.
So weather is more predictable.
Yes.
So it was a deliberate act.
Yes, it absolutely was. It's wee things like that. But it turns out that the coroner, who's not really interested in the poor woman whose son's died in a bike accident, is demanding to know if she sent him a letter. So he's got like an almost, not a poison pen letter as such, but a letter basically saying, I can't tell you who I am, but I'm in danger of being murdered. Here's a photo of me. I can't write my name, but here's a photo. All very strange. There's no photo included. But the coroner's kind of like, but it turns out they've been sent to quite a few high up people in the village, in the kind of village. And nobody's got a photograph. The letters are all kind of very similar. I'm in danger, I'm just trying to help out, but somebody's trying to do away with me. And then I lost interest, completely lost interest, because there was just too many words.
Because the elements so far that you've described sound like they're completely,
Absolutely. And I might one day go back and try again. But I did not a lot of homework because, but it turns out it was written in 1968.
Okay.
And I think you can tell.
Right.
It's not a classic as such that stands the test of time. It's not like an Agatha Christie or anything like that. And some bits in it I think would be slightly offensive to some people. Now, I'm not one of these people that gets angry on other people's behalf. That's when it was written, and that's when it was set. It's not too much, not anything really bad, but just comments nowadays you wouldn't hear because people know better. That's not why I didn't like it. Also, those comments, had a lot of flowery language around them, which in a way kind of disguised them at first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially if you don't know the context of that time and how people disguised.
No, exactly. Which is bizarre because I love that kind of a thing, but this was just
not the racism, the floweriness.
The floweriness and I get the kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I just felt there was too much language and not enough story.
Right.
And there was all of a sudden quite a lot of policemen, and trying to work out who was who. It lost me. And sometimes these things are just, you're not in the mood for that kind of thing. But cozy crime, golden age crime, that's my thing.
Was this on holiday that you read it?
Yes, I started it on holiday, and then which is why I went and bought The Girl of Ink and Stars, because I knew that I wasn't going to keep going with it. I will go back to it. I've discovered as well it's not the first in a series, so it is perhaps that you should already know who these characters are, and because I've not read book 1, 2 and 3, I'm a bit behind, and I always say to people, start a series at the beginning so that you're going with the author where he or she is wanting to go. But some books you can get away with that. This was not one.
Yeah, because Agatha Christie, for example, you could dip in any of the things mostly, and you'd be okay. You wouldn't need to know they were hinted at, even Sherlock Holmes or whatever would be fine. I wonder if it's just a case of the timing and your mind space at that time, or maybe it's not a book for you.
No, we know exactly. And I don't often talk about books that I don't enjoy. But I felt that I wanted to.
No, but sometimes talking about
Mhm.
something that you don't enjoy when you can't quite articulate why
Mhm.
helps
Mhm.
as well, just in terms of seeing whether you do want to give it another shot or whether you never want to think
No,
of
and
it.
talking about it to you there, I remembered the things that were good about it.
Yeah.
And I think probably you need to read it with tongue in cheek. You've got to
Yes.
take these things, and I perhaps wasn't reading it quite like that. I was
Right.
taking it more seriously. Because there's wee funny things that happen. So I think basis of it is that there's a lot of charity people in this village, all with their own wee charities that they're kind of wanting to promote. And so every day is a different type of charity day. So one day it's going to be about hedgehogs, one day it's going to be about Girl Scouts, one day it's going to be this, that, and the next thing. And it almost seems to be as if somebody is sabotaging the other charities.
Ah.
I don't know where the letters come into this,
Right.
but and that, when I'm talking about
Yeah.
it, sounds quite cool.
Yeah.
That somebody's selling cookies but writing like me messages on the
Yes.
bottom of them and things
Yeah.
to kind of go against the other charities and things. But yeah, not for me
For now.
for now.
Yes. But you might go back because it does sound interesting.
Yes.
Maybe not the weird bigotry, but apart from that,
Yeah. I mean, I can see as well that some things have possibly been taken out
yeah,
because they're no longer
yeah,
politically correct.
yeah,
And they've done the same with some of the older books.
yeah,
Even Agatha Christie, they've taken things out of
Yeah.
your publication, changed titles ever so slightly
Yeah.
just to make it more. And Agatha Christie, I'm sure, would be absolutely on board with that
Yeah.
because times change
Yeah.
and she, things like that. And I can see that maybe this book, things have been taken out, but a couple of things have been left
yeah,
because it's part of the story and it's just not
yes,
for me.
yeah. Well, I mean, you read so much. There's bound to be books that are rubbish. I've done a good rant
No,
on so many books. So
Exactly.
this doesn't even seem rant level. It
No.
seems like I didn't like it, but I might in the future.
I think the best word to describe it is disappointed.
Yeah,
I was expecting
yeah.
something.
To fall immediately for it.
Oh, yes, and I've not. And I will push it aside and ask you about your other book.
Well, I haven't finished reading this book yet, but I just picked it up because I love a good non-fiction about a niche subject that I really love,
Mhm.
but I don't know much about. So food for me is one of my biggest love affairs in the world. So the way that I'm fitting this in is a taste of home, because it fits into what I'm going to talk to you about this book, but also for me when I went back home after 7 years. The thing, apart from the people, I have to say that I miss the most is the food.
Mhm.
And completely overindulged. Like by the end of the holiday, I was like, I am just never going to eat again. Ever, never food. Because I wasn't hungry once.
Mhm.
I was just like meeting people, going out, trying different foods that you don't get here.
Mhm.
Because the Indian food that you get here is a very specific kind of Indian food. Even though the UK has very much adopted Indian food as its own cuisine,
Mhm.
it's mostly North Indian food, and there's some wee bits in cities of like South Indian food that you'd get, but like at a local takeaway, you know what you're getting.
Mhm.
And that's not the kind of food that I grew up with because India is such a big country that each state, even, so like in this country, it would be like a county maybe, has its own specialism.
I
So like,
imagine the Cornish pasty.
yes,
Or,
yes,
the kind of Kendal milk
Yes,
cake,
yes.
things like that.
exactly. But because we're so spread out as
So
well,
much more.
yeah, there's more, but also it's difficult. Like you have to sometimes travel to that place to get it. Whereas here, I mean, it's easier to travel
Yes.
to because it's closer.
Yeah.
And there'll also be like bakeries or whatever
Mhm.
places that sort of transfer it here. There'll be like a local from there who's come here and set up,
Mhm.
which happens here as well, that immigrants will come in and they miss the food of their land and they're trying to make, but it's always something new because you're mixing your
absolutely.
country with the new country and
Which is a good thing in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I can imagine even like what we think of as Mexican
Yes,
food
yes,
will not be
yes.
exactly what
Which is, I think that's great because it's like a mishmash of different cuisines and you're creating something new together, like taking something from one and from the other. And that's fantastic.
And also, I think some people would not necessarily try something
Yeah.
if it was too much.
Yes. Yeah.
You know
So
what I
it's
mean?
like
Different
baby
taste.
steps. And then maybe you want to explore further. So this book actually is talking a little bit about that. So it's a weird mix of like, which I love again, like a mishmash of biography, food history, like culinary history, and the history of China a little bit as well.
What number do we have it on our non-fiction shelves at?
Food, I'm assuming.
Right, okay.
641 5092.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
yeah, it's fit.
But it is, so it's about this person called Fu Pei Mei, who was originally from China, but then she sort of went to Taiwan, which is like a sort of now, I think, subsidiary, but there's a lot of political stuff happening there of China. They wanted a little bit of independence, and then the mainland China wasn't giving it to them. So there was a civil war happening in China, and a lot of people like escaped to Taiwan, and they missed the taste of home. They missed a lot. And China is the same, like it's bigger than India even. So they have their own regional specialties. But a lot of these people, so it focuses on like middle class people within and like up, like sort of up, wealthy upper class sort of people who wouldn't necessarily have cooked themselves. They would have had maids or chefs to cook in their homes. But now that they're all in exile in Taiwan, they have to figure out how to cook. They don't have the support that they would have had back home. So they have to figure out how to cook. So this Fu Pei Mei, she was like a housewife. She like she married someone from Taiwan, and at that time, like this was in the 50s, 1950s, 1960s, she didn't know how to cook. So she used her dowry, and her husband was very mean about her cooking, would always like be like, oh, you don't even know how to make a dumpling or whatever. This is horrible. This keeps coming out. Not that he would step into the kitchen and help her, of course. Oh, no. And she took it as a point of like, she was really not offended. She was sad because she wanted to make nice food. So she decided to use her money. So she had like some money from her dowry, so like gold and stuff. She spent all of it, and for 3 years hired chefs from restaurants to teach her different cuisines within China. So like there's these different provinces have different specialties. So she just learned, she spent a lot of money. And at that time, it was like very much a male domain, chefs. And even now in many parts of the world, like chefs are supposed to be like these great men. And they would each have their secrets, their house secrets, which they wouldn't want to reveal to her. So even though she was paying them so much money, they would like, quickly like tell her things, not like teach her properly. And like just when she was making hurried notes, they'd throw something else into the work so that she doesn't see what it is. Yeah, but she managed. She'd go and she'd practice and things. She was a very diligent student. And in 3 years, she sort of learned how to make all these different things. And then she decided that she wants to teach other people how to do it because it's such a secret. But there's a sort of space for it. Like all these other housewives want to learn how to cook. So she started just in her backyard. She started these cooking classes for like other women in Taiwan who missed the taste of like China, mainland China. And it became a really successful food thing. And then once there was like a TV show that was starting in Taiwan where they were looking for someone who'd host a cooking show, and she got the job and she was really good at it because she knew how these horrible chefs would not teach her properly. So she wanted to do the opposite, and she would like give like really nice tips. She'd be really friendly. She'd be super like specific about the things that you need to do. And she almost like translated this language that seemed really difficult of cooking into something that seemed more accessible. And she also then wrote a cookbook. And this is this sort of second life of her thing. So she wrote a cookbook which was both in Chinese and in English. So it was, she wanted to appeal to different people. And it became this sort of generational kind of gift where people who would be traveling outside of Taiwan or to like the West, to the US or the UK or wherever, the mothers would send it with them so that they could like make stuff that they wouldn't have made at home. Because like a lot of people, this was true for me as well. I didn't really cook when I was back in Mumbai.
Mhm.
Like my mom would cook, or there's like lots of nice street food stalls that are really cheap.
Mhm.
We just like eat out like that. Eating out isn't as expensive as it is here
Yeah.
in this country. So food is really accessible. We'd eat out a lot. It was only when I moved here to study is when I started teaching myself.
Mhm.
So when I used to cook back in Mumbai, it would be food that I wouldn't get around me, like Indian food and stuff.
Mhm.
Whereas here, I want to learn how to make stuff that I miss from home.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what she managed to do with her cookbook. So there's like generations of women and men who've moved abroad, like first generation, generation immigrants, who are like still recognize her and revere her
Mhm.
because she's been such an
Ah.
important part of their
Mhm.
life. And it was really interesting to learn about how she had such a big impact, even though I don't know who she is. But they're talking about like different, so the food is the lens,
Mhm.
but they're talking about the different ways it's made an impact on people and how much food means to people
Mhm.
in like different things. There would also be like American soldiers' wives who were stationed in Taiwan who would go to her cooking classes and they'd learn from her. She was called the Julia Child of Chinese cooking, even though she came before Julia Child
Mhm.
a little bit. And so in China, they'd call her like Julia Child is the Fu Pei Mei of
Uh-huh,
French
yeah.
cooking. But they'd learn and then they'd go back to the US or wherever in different parts of the US and they'd teach there like other people there. So she was really responsible for this spread of different kinds of Chinese cooking.
Mhm.
And she really believed that food can create these cross-cultural friendships, especially at a time now when, you know, we're looking at different cultures with so much like animosity.
Mhm.
She thought that learning to cook and learning to talk to people and eating and cooking together different foods can create bonds that maybe just like reading about somebody
Yeah.
wouldn't. So it was a really interesting, I
Mhm.
think, kind of framework for this book. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And is there any actual of her recipes in the book?
No, so
No.
well, there's like a photo of her recipe, but her book is still like
Still right
she
there.
died, I think, in 2004,
Mhm.
but her book is still like a part of the canon, so you can still buy her books. But there's like photos of her and her kind of there's one I think recipe, a photo of her recipe, but it's mostly more about her life and what was happening around her at that time, because even though she she was like such a big part of like creating like women going out and working as well,
Yeah.
because she wanted to make things easy for them so that they're not just like toiling away the whole day in the kitchen. She was trying to make recipes that were easy for them, but her husband never took her seriously. Like even though when she would like give all her money to him and he would be doling out like pocket money, even though she makes so much money,
Mhm.
and was only after he died that she even thought to question some of the things
Oh, uh-huh.
that now people might question more
Yeah.
readily. But at that time, there were like these kinds of conversations were still not
Mhm.
fully evident. It was happening, but slowly.
Yeah.
So then she was thinking that, oh, was that right? That all, like, why was I so much, or like, why did I want to please him so
Mhm.
much? Why did he have control of all the money? Things like that. And also, sort of how women, like, were otherwise relegated to the kitchen, very much so in China,
Mhm.
from what I'm reading. It was like men have to, like, the world outside the home is men's domain, and the world
Yeah.
inside the home is women's domain, similar in India as well.
Mhm.
So she's sort of, through her cooking, like she might have fitted into that traditional gender roles,
Mhm.
but she was helping women step out beyond that. She was stepping out beyond
Mhm.
that because she was on TV for like decades,
Yeah.
and she's still such a big name among Chinese diaspora in
Mhm.
like around the world. So I'm loving learning about her, but also the kind of wider sort of conversations that she was a part of.
I'm surprised we've put it in the cookery book section.
Oh, is it in the cookery
Yes,
book
in the cookery
section?
book section. It would probably be better, as you say, it's a bit of a mix of different genres,
Yeah.
but probably better in maybe the biography
Yeah.
section.
And I guess it's a difficult one to categorize. But like, when you asked about recipes, there's not really.
Yeah.
It's almost like a subgenre which I love, of food history and food, like the sort of impact of culture and society and politics and economics on food,
Yeah.
and how food is a part of the conversation. So I don't know that we have enough books in the
No.
library to be that niche. But yeah, it would, I think you're right, because it might get a bit lost in the food shelves. But if someone is interested in food, or interested in just like learning about a different part of the world, about a different kind of food even, it's just a fantastic book.
It sounds really fascinating,
Yes.
actually. And I do enjoy the cover. You've been waving it around there.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the cover. And I see now there's a wee picture of her on
Yes,
TV.
so that's her as well, and this is her first book too, and that was like a genius move of making. I think that helped her propel her fame outwards.
And how did that work, though? Because obviously she was female.
Yeah,
Was
she
that
self-published her book.
right? Okay.
Yeah, her first book, like she believed, that's the thing, she invested her money so much in the stuff that she did, because even like from the first, like the cooking lessons, the 3-year cooking lessons with these horrible chefs that she did, she spent her own money. Like she spent the dowry that her family had given her, and she invested in herself almost, and it paid off. Like she's now become this big sort of name within that community. And but again, like it's so sad that on the flip side, her husband never took her career
Yeah.
seriously. Her husband never took her like, she writes about how when the first TV show that she did, the episode, they didn't have anything to cook with. They didn't have like burners or crockery or plates or ingredients, nothing. She had to bring it all by herself. So she like sort of recruited her mom and her children to like take things, but never it was like her husband ever helped her or ever stepped into the kitchen. So it was quite like a nice paradox, I think. But even reading about that is really interesting.
And it's funny as well, because as you say, chefs were usually male who are doing cooking, but wouldn't. That's not that's a job rather than in
that's
the house.
prestige and
Yeah.
status, whereas at home that's just like
That's
food.
just what you
Yeah,
do,
yeah, that's
yeah.
just what you have to do. So that's not important enough for
Yeah.
us. So yeah, and no men would cook. But then now in her classes, that some men started coming as well. Some Chinese men, a lot of like Western men who wanted to learn. There'd be people who travel from different countries to go to her cooking classes, and then so there was this one professor, I think, in the US who taught like cultural studies and stuff. So he went and he came back and he wanted to teach people to, again, like understanding a culture through its food, so that you're not just these limited stories of China or Taiwan, but you're learning more about the food. I know that now there's that kind of thing with Palestine, like a lot of Palestinian people are teaching there because it's such a sort of fraught topic in many communities.
Yeah.
So they're trying to humanize it a little bit, because food you can share.
Absolutely.
And you can, eat together and share stories around. Whereas if it's like something more serious, I think, not that food is not serious, but if it's more, it has a more friendly environment.
Absolutely.
So it is a great way to build bridges, I think.
It's fascinating as well, because this all happened in the 50s.
Yeah.
And if you
50s,
think
60s.
about it, nowadays everything's online.
Yes.
If you want to know a recipe, if you want to know this, that, you can do it. You can self-publish online.
Yeah.
And it's not going to cost you the amount of money.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. For her, it shows you the difference. Like back then, how much work went into that.
Yes.
As opposed to now, where everything's at our fingertips.
But you know what? I think I would like to make an attempt to do this, which is find a class to go to, because I'm the same as you. Like if I'm looking for something to make, or like I have some ingredients to use up and I want ideas, I'll just go online and see. But that's not that sense of community, and even that sense of like technique, because she was teaching the specific Chinese techniques that like in that cuisine that you learn, and you learn it by doing, or you learn it when you see someone do it, and not necessarily just reading a blog post about it.
Absolutely.
So, and it's nice when you're a group learning together, making mistakes,
And it
teaching
doesn't
each
matter
other.
what you're learning or making the mistakes doing.
Yeah.
It could be cooking, it could be doing anything.
Yes.
But you're right, that kind of is lacking in the world nowadays.
That
is that we don't-
connection.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this has actually inspired me to keep an eye out for like a cooking class in Glasgow that I've joined, because I've never done anything like that.
Yeah.
I've just like sort of learned online. Like nobody's really taught me to cook, but I would like to learn, because I just think that kind of conversations that happen, the kind of things you're learning, of course, but also the things that you're not learning, like in technique, but learning about the world and the people
Absolutely.
would be really
It's
good.
also quite an organic thing, cooking, in that, you know, you can be told how to do something, but then you'll put your own spin on it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure she found that when she was teaching the
Yes.
classes, that at first everybody was doing it the way that she was doing it, but have possibly went on and went, actually, I'd like a wee bit more of this.
Yeah.
Or I don't like that, so I'm
Yeah.
going to take that out. You know, that's the great thing about cooking, even like, you know, specific cookbooks with specific recipes.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I'm one for just adding like herbs to everything.
Yes.
You know, even if they should never ever be near a herb
Oh,
ever.
garlic.
Yes,
If they say 3 cloves of garlic, I'm like, that's just your opinion. I'm
And
so
onions,
sorry.
I'm putting onions
Yeah,
in
yeah.
no matter what cup is gone. I'm
Yeah.
putting onions in.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And you know, that's nice when you're talking to other people.
Yeah. To get ideas as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, somebody else says, oh, I swap my onions for chives.
Yes.
You know, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation. It doesn't really matter what the conversation's about. It's a conversation.
And also, there's so much information online that there's too much information
Absolutely.
online. Like, you know, if you're looking for something specific, or like in the realm of maybe a specific ingredient, but if you're going to like a cooking class, or even like finding a cookbook, you know, from one of our shelves, you'll encounter surprises that you wouldn't have thought otherwise, like to look for, even you wouldn't even know what you don't know.
Yes, exactly.
So that would be like a good thing. So yeah, I think that's well, if I don't find a cooking class, I'd like to make that a project, like get a cookbook and sort of try and cook things.
Well, you should get
within
her
it.
original cookbook.
Yes. Oh, but it is very meat heavy, Jenny, and I'm very afraid of
right,
cooking
okay.
meat. Yeah. So it's a vegetarian version. Yes.
But if she's cooking the wok, I always think wok cooking
That's true.
is good because you can see it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you stick something in the oven, you can't really see it cooking, whereas in the wok,
Yes.
you can.
And she does. So that I was learning things about like Chinese cuisine as well. Like they have different things for how you cook it on the wok as well. Like with heat, just heat, with oil, with sauce, after sauce, and like knife skills as well, which I have none of. Like I just chop. Like
Now it's just getting sinister.
Yeah.
Knife skills, people. Knife skills.
You've not finished reading your murder mystery. Might I remind you? Don't bring your murder into my family.
Now, what we now want is a murder mystery set in a cooking school.
Yes. Oh, the next book. That's a quest that I think is more attainable than me learning knife skills and chopping off a thumb. But yes, I definitely recommend this to people who are interested in like it's an academic sort of who's written it, but and she's like a scholar. She's like written from her own history because she's Taiwanese, Chinese American. So who never learned to cook, but because she thought that, you know, like women have to cook, so I'm not going to learn. But then like later in life, she was like, and she was really busy as well. She's a professor. But later in life, she went back to like trying to bring the tastes from her childhood back to her children. So it was nice that kind of mishmash and that kind of back and forth within time as well.
Cooking for a lot of people as well is similar to like calming, colouring in and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of taking time away from doing other things. So you can imagine if you're a very busy scholar, you know, you won't have time for all this. But if you take the time, it's going to help that way as well.
Yeah, because you're so right. Like on the one hand, it is a lot of mental work because you need to know the ingredients that, you know, if you're like a more sort of like laissez-faire cook like I am, I'll just use whatever is at home, or I'll have to think what I need to make something. And it's like, you know, you have to keep in mind all the different things that you're doing at a time. But on the other hand, you're so right. I use that when my brain is too full. It's like just a step that this is what I'm going to focus on. And there's like a tangible result at the end which you can enjoy, hopefully.
Or not. Exactly.
Yeah, but
it's not supposed to be on a fire.
Or isn't it? There's some fire techniques that exist. But yeah, so like I want to read more, I think, about food books through this lens. Like I'd love like different cuisines that I'm not super familiar with, because Chinese food as well, changes in different contexts. Like I grew up eating Indian Chinese food, which I don't know if a Chinese person would recognize as, but it's a very specific kind of, and like British Chinese food is also a very specific kind of Chinese food. So I love how cuisines travel and become different things to different people as well. So I'd like to read maybe even an Indian cooking book or through this lens, or like a Scottish or British book through this lens.
We're going to have to hope there's more of them out there.
Yeah.
And if there's not, somebody.
Hopefully
Yes.
we'll write one. Yes. But yeah, so that's, I think B is super happy
Yes.
with our homely books. We did go on for a
We
while.
have done, yes.
So what about the next sort of quest that we have?
Pari, episode 64 we're at next time is dancing.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, dancing. Good. I think dancing can be like, and we do like branch out into very different figurative kind of things. So we can make anything dance.
Yes, I'm going to find a murder mystery.
Of dance? In a dance school?
Yes, ballet school. Being specific now.
Oh, you set yourself a much harder quest than we had for you, but good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.